Today on Spider-Man, it's time to end the Spider-Man Beyond saga. This is Comicstorian. I take some of your favorite comic books, I break them down into a synopsis, and I give you an audio drama of the bare-bones storyline. We cut out a lot of the fluff and the extra stuff with the intensive purpose of giving you enough information to understand what is happening in the world of comics, but leaving out enough for you to go out and add them to your collection if you would like to. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems. Today we're going to be bringing you Amazing Spider-Man 91, 92, 92. Beyond, and 93, which is the conclusion to Spider-Man Beyond. As a quick recap, Peter Parker got injured and was placed into the hospital. Ben Reilly came back as Spider-Man working for the corporation, the Beyond Corporation. It turns out that the Beyond Corporation is an evil corporation that has been manipulating Ben Reilly's memories. So he's going in to get his revenge against them, and while he goes in for this big final fight, Peter Parker has finally healed up enough to join him. Now we are entering the facility, and that is today's episode. Let's wrap up Spider-Man Beyond. Once inside the supervillain program facility, Ben and Peter begin to make their way through it when Ben's responses begin to feel a bit off. His memories have been wiped out recently, and core components that make Peter Parker Spider-Man are missing from Ben Reilly, his clone's memories. Peter begins to web up a mechanical spider that Ben missed, asking him if everything's all right. And though Ben tells him yeah, in his head he's thinking it's really not. He's not all there. Peter's still a little confused as to what has been going on because he's been in the hospital, but tells Ben that it's clear that Beyond was up to no good. Did you see that chicken man back there? He had boxing gloves. So if either of us are going to get out of here alive, we gotta work together, Ben. Ben gets up, taking Peter's hand, telling him that he can do that. We can do that, Pete. The two get to work, thwipping everything in sight, and once they finish, Peter says that it's almost like an art working with him. And as Ben looks back to Peter Parker, he sees the familiar void where Peter's face should be. Still not fully piecing together who Peter Parker is. That memory is missing from his head. He doesn't know who Peter is. Peter asks him what's wrong, and Ben says that it's nothing, he's fine. And after that, Peter turns back to move on, but notices an adorable little cat-like creature with big ears sitting there. It meeps, and Peter comments how cute it is, and then it grows, razor-sharp fangs, and a dozen more creep out of the shadows. Crap, I should have known. Too cute is always a red flag. Ben, little help? As the creatures all pile on and begin to bite Peter, Ben shakes his head, stating that he has to get it together. These things aren't real. Except they are. He doesn't know what's real anymore. He eventually fires off a few quick web shots that plaster the creatures all over the walls, and Peter tells him thanks. You, good? Ben tells him he isn't really. Peter tells him not to worry, he's been there. And Ben asks, you have? And Peter looks at him inquisitively. You know I have. But Ben can't remember. The two begin to work their way deeper into the facility with Peter's spider sense going off when suddenly a red car comes crashing through the ceiling. In the driver's seat is Colleen Wing, laughing, stating that she didn't know the car could fly! And Misty tells her, I'm pretty sure we're not flying, we're falling, Colleen! As the car crashes into the middle of the warehouse, Misty gets out, looking at the two Spider-Men. Hello, Spiders, we're here to help get this under control. But what's the real story here? Peter points up, telling her, well, maybe if you didn't put a giant escape hatch in the ceiling, we'd be okay. And Ben tells them, yeah, these things being trapped in here may be the only advantage that we had. The two spiders begin to plug up the hole with webbing, and the four of them continue to start to clean up the remaining monsters being kept in the supervillain facility. But halfway through, Ben says he has a better idea, running over to the computer terminal. He hacks into the system when he's suddenly kicked out, and a projection of Maxine tells him to come back. It's not too late to fix this, Ben. Ben looks at the woman that has been ripping memories out of his mind, the one that tricked him into working for her, and informs her that she is insane. What you're doing here is straight up villain stuff. She tells him to stop before it gets worse. She has teams en route to help clean all of this up. We can work this out. And Ben turns to her. Or what? If not, I can open up door Z. Ben pauses for a moment. You know what? Don't bother. I'll do it for you. He activates the console as Maxine is shouting, asking what is he doing? And Ben tells her that he no longer cares what's in there. He only cares about Maxine, and he's coming for her, for answers. She better hope that he likes what he finds, or she might want to start running. Alarms begin to blare across the entire facility as Peter, Missy, and Colleen are beginning to wonder what is even going on. They turn back to Ben Reilly, who throws a small explosive up, creating a hole that he can escape out of. I'm sorry, but I can't have any of you getting in my way. Everyone watches and Peter realizes that Ben is leaving, and Misty says that he's in more trouble than she thought. Once Ben leaves, it's just the three of them, and everyone gathers around Door Z speculating what is behind it and what just got freed, and why it's taking an awful long time to open up. After several dramatic minutes later, the giant steel door begins to pull open, and a faint growling can be heard, and through the misty shadows, Doc Connor's lizard steps out roaring. Misty tells him, "Okay, this is worse." And Peter asks, "Connor, what have they done to you?" Peter and the Daughters of the Dragon are now about to fight a much more brutal and altered version of Doc Connors. He's savage, he's brutal, and he has wings, and he's also choking Peter at this point. Colleen tells Peter to relax, she'll take care of this, and she swings her katana, hacking off one of his arms. Misty asks if they're sure this is actually Connor's, and Peter begins to try and pry the hand that is around his neck off of his body. Sure, no, but we should know any second now. As another arm shoots out, replacing the missing one, Peter looks at them. Yeah, regenerating limbs. That is in fact Doc Connors. The lizard roars as it begins to charge up once more, forcing everyone into another room where they find the real reason for the sudden change in Connors. On the operating table before them, Morbius is laid out, hooked up to several tubes and wires, and Colleen yells, "That's it! We're fighting a vampire lizard, Doc Connors!" Misty and Colleen look over at Morbius's body, and the two Daughters of the Dragon get to work unhooking Morbius when suddenly he lunges up, gasping for air. They both draw their weapons, asking if he's feeling normal, and Morbius takes off the rest of the tubes, telling them, "I am myself again. Even though Beyond stabilized me, they did so that they could experiment on me and take samples." At this moment, the vampiric creature Z continues pounding away at the door, and Peter asks if that was the case, "How about you lend us a hand with the vampire lizard that's about to break through the door, Morbius?" But while Peter gains an unlikely ally in Morbius, over in Ben's apartment, he finishes taking up the kill team that was sent for him, stating that Peter and them wouldn't have understood. So explaining what he's going through is pointless. He needs his memories back. The ones that they took that were originally Peter's. The ones that tell Ben Reilly who he is, how he's supposed to live. He isn't a bad person. He just needs the memories. This is where they've been keeping them. This is where they're keeping them from him. And he's going to get them all back. Back in the lab, there's a moment of silence as Peter asks if the banging stopped. And Colleen says, "All right, good work, everyone." And Peter realizes no. That means that Creature Z isn't after us. It must be escaping the facility. Misty reloads her gun, telling him that they can deal with that. Her, Colleen, and Mike. We'll call Auntie Monica to clean that up too. You go after Ben, Peter. Everyone hurries out and Morbius asks, "Who is Mike?" Colleen says that that's him. Morbius tells her, "I prefer Michael or Dr. Morbius." Colleen tells him, "Sure, whatever you say, Mike." But back with Ben, he finds Janine, his girlfriend, and tells her that they need to get out of there. Everything has gone to hell and there's no coming back from it. Janine tells him that this arrangement was always too good to be true. Her out of prison, him as Spider-Man, they both knew that they shouldn't have said it out loud. However, back at the Beyond headquarters, Maxine reaches out to the one person that she knows that might be able to help her with the most minimal damage, Marcus. She tells him that Ben needs him, and that there's no one else better suited for the task. Marcus, Ben's original handler, laughs, stating, "Unbelievable, after all the things," and Maxine shushes him. "Look, you can think whatever you want, but Ben is still in your care. Are you going to help him or not?" Back over at the apartment, Ben follows Janine, asking if she knows where she's going, and Janine tells him yeah, she knows a lot more about this place than Beyond thinks. She'll go find Marcus and get him clear before they burn this place to the ground. And this is where they part. Ben gives Janine one last kiss, telling her that he doesn't remember right from wrong. He doesn't remember the lessons that taught him to live. But Janine, all of his memories of her, those are his. Only his. That's what he's got to anchor him. He's not a bad person. He can't be. For her. Because she's had enough bad people in her life. So it's time to get his memories back and be who Ben Reilly should be. Meanwhile, Peter Parker is following Ben Reilly, and the Daughters of the Dragon are taking care of Creature Z. While this is going on, Auntie Monica gets to work cleaning up Beyond's Staten Island facility full of villain prototypes. Using her powers as the former Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau cracks her knuckles and flies in, making what others would consider tough seem like a walk in the park. But the villains aren't a problem. If she was to hit Beyond where it would hurt, she would need help from someone within a villain of sorts. She's already taken down Beyond's facilities 3 times, But for this kind of work, the getting your hands dirty and burning down a multinational conglomerate, she's going to need someone truly unlikable. Enter Machine Man. As Monica opens up the door, a down-on-his-luck Machine Man tells her, "Go away, fleshy one! Can't you see that I want to be alone with all my beer cans everywhere? Just leave me alone!" Monica asks, what is it this time? And Machine Man says that his girlfriend left him. So I thought, what the hell? Maybe I can be a supervillain. That'd show her. So I joined the Beyond Villain program, but it turns out that I'm too depressed even for that. Did you know that I'm not the real Machine Man? The machine may be cold and emotionless, but the man, oh, the man! After listening to his sob story, Monica rushes in, kicking Machine Man, telling him, "You're a stupid, stupid robot. Do you really think I care about your feelings? I came here to get you to help me." And with that, Machine Man and Monica Rambeau begin to punch through all of the villains. Machine Man uses propellers in his heads, extending his arms, while Monica Rambeau is using her super strength and Captain Marvel-like powers to remove everything. And as they're tearing apart the facility, a projection of Maxine appears, wondering just who is Monica Rambeau? And she smiles, telling her, "I just want you to know that it was all me. Tell whoever you work for that I am the one who disassembled your entire operation and facility. I've been working behind the scenes this whole time. And the Daughters of the Dragon, the ones that you hired, they were working for me the whole time. I'm the one they were feeding information to. And that's why you don't have the Heart Star. And that's why you've been undermined, Maxine. All to take you down." Maxine stares for a moment and realizes that while she was dealing with Ben and Peter, Monica Rambeau has this entire time been dismantling the Beyond Corporation. With that, there's an explosion in the facility, and the entire facility burns down, leaving just Monica and Machine Man to see the rubble staring at it. Machine Man asks Monica what's next, and she tells him that Beyond still has a lot of mad science sites. How about they go and do it all over again? But back with our heroes, the main people of this story. Fighting through droves of security forces at Beyond, Ben Reilly finally manages to break into the inner labs where he finds Maxine just casually looking at one of the lab's devices. Ben storms in shouting, "What did you do to my memories? What did you do?" And Maxine tells him, "Grow up. No one did anything to you. You knew the risks of our procedures. You and Kefka saw that no copies of your implanted memories would be held, all to protect your friend's identity. So we both agree that you messed this up. So the only question remains, do you have the courage to fix it, Ben? If you want to heal, then you will need to acquire the memories that are locked away in your friend's brain, which conveniently enough, Peter Parker is already on site. This machine here can take the memories from the original source, and I'll see that they're put back to where they belong. Surely your friend would be willing to help. But if he doesn't, Ben lunges at the hologram shouting, "Peter is my friend!" Maxine asks, "Is he? I'm offering you a chance to be whole again. Will your friend do the same? After all, they're his memories." And just like that, the hologram fades and Ben is left by himself with the memory machine. A short while later, Peter follows a pair of guards getting ready to go after him when he notices one of their guns, the Infantizer, is missing off of the rack. The guard asks who took it, and the other sighs, stating that this is why they have protocols. But before Peter could do anything, Ben swings in, taking out the guards. Peter looks at his friend. "Are you okay?" And Ben says that he did something bad to his head. "I'm going to need you to put this helmet on, Peter." Peter looks at the device. "Look, I know there's a lot of confusion going on right now, but we can figure this out. There's no way I'm putting that thing on." Ben looks at him angrily. "That's the thing. I'm not asking." In another part of the building, Marcus is being escorted by security when suddenly they stop seeing Janine. Marcus looks up asking, What are you doing here?" And one of the guards yells that she's got a... Wait, what is that? Janine readies the rifle, saying the label said Infantizer. "Let her know how it feels." And she pulls the trigger, with the guards being blasted with a red light, and then sounds of babies can be heard. Marcus looks around to see all the guards are now babies crying and asking, Can we turn them back?" Janine tells him, "Who cares? They were gonna kill us." Marcus nods. "Right. Well, I know how to get out of here." And Janine stops him. "Who said we're leaving?" Back with Peter and Ben, Ben holds out the helmet. "I need you to put this on. I've been living my whole life as the other person in my own head. Now there's nothing stopping me from being the first person. Put the helmet on, Peter." Ben then follows up with a powerful uppercut, knocking Ben to the ground, and Ben yells, "I don't want to fight, Ben!" Ben shouts, "Don't act like you wanted to help!" And Peter screams back at him, "All I wanted to do was help!" The two throw themselves at each other, shouting as they each take turns punching into one another. But using his own webs against him, Ben pulls on the web that Peter shot into his arms and pulls him in, kicking Peter straight in the chest. Still using that web, Peter flings himself back forward, headbutting Ben, shouting, "I don't hate you!" But then Ben takes the head-splitting headbutt and kicks off at Peter, grabbing him by the head, slamming him into the ground. "I just want what's mine!" Deploy Spinneret. A metal coil wraps and binds Peter. Peter telling him, "We can figure this out. Just let me help." "If you wanted to help, why are you making me do this, Peter?" When suddenly there's a warning over the intercom warning that this level has been selected for molecular rearrangement. Legal personnel with credential level 4 and below, please evacuate. For staff 5 and higher, please wait. A green substance begins to pour in and fill the room, with Ben stating that the spinneret is designed to hold him in place. And unlike their webs, it doesn't dissolve. Peter laughs and Ben says, "What's so funny? Our webs may dissolve, but at least they don't stick around long enough for me to take them apart and figure out the unlock command. You know, just like I did now." Ben asks, "What are you talking about?" Peter says the key phrase, Janine 0414. Suddenly, the spinneret releases its hold, and once free, Peter charges in, telling him, "I am sick and tired of your gadgets," and he punches through the helmet. Ben stares for a moment at the pieces. "No, that's it. Then I'm gone. I'm nothing. I'm nothing!" He screams as he jumps up, tackling Peter to the ground, punching him over and over again, shouting, "I hate you! You took everything! You did this to me! Say it! Say it!" Peter manages to push Ben off of him, and in doing so, Ben falls off the ledge, landing on the ground where the green goop is slowly beginning to fill. Peter calls out to Ben, but Ben looks up. "I'm missing all the parts. I just wanted them back, Peter. Why would I have expected anyone to help me?" Peter yells for him to jump up, but Ben stays on the ground as the green liquid begins to cover him up. "Goodbye, Peter." Suddenly, there's a giant explosion throwing Peter back, and Marcus yells, "This way, they've got to go." As people outside of the building watch, there's an explosion, and the building begins to sink, and then stops, and one of the bystanders asks if the building just got shorter. A few weeks go by, and Peter and MJ come back from a jog. And MJ says that they're going to start moving to 3 miles starting Monday. Does he think he can handle it? Peter stretches, telling her that that's the plan. And thanks for helping out. He'll be back to normal in no time. MJ tells him that maybe once all of this is settled, he can move in with her. Like, permanently. And Peter laughs, telling her that if she is okay with him being a complete and total mess, sure. But suddenly his spidey sense goes off, and there's a light that shines through the window. A figure appears, stating that a road of blood led you. Come to me. Peter tries to cover his eyes, asking, Who are you? Meanwhile, many more months later, in an unknown location, Ben Reilly is staring at himself in a mirror, seeing an empty void where his own face should be. He tells himself that she'll never leave him and he'll never leave her, and that might be all he knows. He shakes his head, telling himself to stop it, and pulls down a purple mask and makes a wet slopping sound, and once it's on, he begins to scream. "No! Stop! Stop it!" Janine hurries into the bathroom after hearing a crash, asking what's going on, Ben. But no, Ben is gone, and where he once stood, there is only chasm! And that concludes Spider-Man Beyond and the new direction for Ben Reilly. And I know some people are really disliking the series because of his treatment of Ben Reilly. I overall thought it was at least something with Ben Reilly, so I enjoyed it. If you want to see what's going to happen next, because they've already started up the next amazing Spider-Man storyline, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us on Patreon for early access. I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.